InvestEU, Financing Europe's Future. I'm Naomi Lloyd, Euronews TV journalist, and I'm delighted to be here with you this afternoon hosting this event. InvestEU is the EU's flagship investment programme set up to boost the European economy. It runs from 2021 to 2027. And so here at the beginning of 2024 is the perfect moment to reflect, to hear about some of its impact and success stories so far, to consider some of the challenges and to look towards the future. Over the course of this afternoon, you're going to be hearing from some of the businesses and the projects that have benefited from the InvestEU programme, as well as from some of the stakeholders and the financial institutions that help implement the programme. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. This event is being live streamed across Europe and beyond, so a warm welcome to those of you who are joining us online. And it will be recorded, so you will be able to access it again. Now, you may have seen them on your way in. In the lobby, there are exhibition stands of a number of InvestEU's implementing partners and advisory partners. So do go and have a look, say hello in the break, and after the event, they'll be very happy to meet with you. For those of you who are on X and LinkedIn and would like to create a social media whirl around this event, do feel free to use the hashtag InvestEU. Your badge is very useful. It tells you how to access the Wi-Fi. You can also scan the QR code on it to see the programme. A reminder that there are no drinks or food allowed in the room. That's the housekeeping. Let's get on with the event. And I am delighted to say that we will be starting the event by hearing from the European Commissioner for the Economy, Paolo Gentiloni. Commissioner.
Well, thank you and welcome. Great pleasure to see everyone here. And as we just heard, we are more or less halfway in this InvestEU program. So we want to take stock, understand what has worked well and what could work better. But before to turn to the future, let us look back and recall where we have come from. All started in the wake of the financial crisis. At the time, investment levels, both public and private, plunged. In 2013, total investment in the EU was down almost 20% compared to 2008. To reverse this trend, in 2014, the Commission put forward the investment plan for Europe, better known as the Juncker plan. You know that Jean-Claude Juncker always complains that when it started to work, we changed the name. At its heart was the new European Fund for Strategic Investment, or EFC. Thanks to a 21 billion guarantee from the EU budget and the European Investment Bank, the EFC would crowd in private financing and mobilize 315 billion in additional investments. And I'm delighted that we have one of the fathers of the EFC, Jyrki Katainen, here with us today. I'm sure he recalls that at the time, many dismissed this sort of leverage as wishful thinking, but it worked. InvestEU retained the mechanism of the guarantee from the EU budget and the close cooperation with the EIB of the initial model. But it also novel in three key aspects. First, it brings together a dozen previously separate programs under one single roof. Second, priority setting. 4 windows have been established, each with a dedicated financial envelope, and they reflect our common priorities: sustainable infrastructure, research, innovation and digitization, SMEs and medium enterprises, and social investments and skills. Finally, InvestEU is open to institutions others than the EIB, such as national promotional banks. This recognizes that the European and national levels are complementary, EIB and national promotion banks. And it it is essential to leverage as much as possible the available and specific expertise of implementing partners that are on the ground and close to the projects themselves. In addition to the InvestEU fund, the program has two other components. The InvestEU Advisory Hub provides support and technical assistance, including capacity building to project developers and entities, specifically important for SMEs. And the InvestEU portal brings together investors and project promoters on a single EU-wide platform, providing an easily accessible and user-friendly database of investment opportunities. Good morning, Vincent. Available in the, good afternoon, in the EU, and matchmaking and networking opportunities between projects and companies and their potential investors. Today, there are more than 1,500 projects from all over Europe on the portal. Halfway through this program, we can already say InvestEU is a European success story. The numbers speak for themselves. 90% of the 26 billion guarantee provided has already been taken up, and more than 70% has been already approved by the investment committee. We have 16 implementing partners with more to follow. And non-EU countries like Norway and Iceland have recognized the added value of InvestEU and have recently joined the program. Thanks to InvestEU financing for more than 170 investment projects has already been authorized. This will mobilize an estimated 225 billion in investment in key areas for Europe's future. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have before us a mountain of investments to deliver on our common priorities, and we are referring to this every day. The green and digital transitions, which hold the keys to Europe's future competitiveness, growth and jobs prospects, require an estimated 650 billion in additional investment every year until 2030. Instruments like InvestEU and the Recovery and Resilience Facility are making a meaningful contribution to closing the gap. But Europe's investment challenges will not end with the planned conclusion of the RRF in 26 and InvestEU in 27. The shifting economic and geopolitical landscape compels us to ramp up investments in strategic industries, in energy security, in defense, in rebuilding Ukraine. The reflection on how to finance these common European priorities under the EU next multi-annual budget must begin now. What is clear to me is that the InvestEU model is working. The EU budget guarantee helps create synergies between the public and private sectors, and this is key in these times. It encourages market players to be future-oriented and to take more risk. In turn, this allows our policies to have a greater impact, especially in those areas where the market alone cannot deliver. That is why, looking beyond 2027, I believe there is a strong case to be made for another pan-European program based on a budgetary guarantee to mobilize private investments in strategic areas. And we should build on the excellent relationship and precious expertise of the EIB, whose new president, Nadia Calviño, will hear from later this afternoon, on national promotion banks and on other international financial institutions involved in implementing InvestEU. At the same time, we should also think about how we can make it more impactful. For instance, a simpler framework may facilitate, should facilitate, participation for some and implementation for others. There is a lot of conversation about the complexity of the mechanism. And greater built-in flexibility may help us adapt more swiftly to shifting policy priorities. How can this be done? We are looking forward to hearing your ideas. We will kick off this afternoon with a discussion of these questions and other lessons learned so far from the implementation of InvestEU. Our opening high-level panel features EIB Vice President Teresa Czerwinnska, Belgium's Finance Minister and current ECOFIN Chair Vincent van Petegem, and former Finnish Prime Minister and Commission Vice President Jyrki Katainen. Thank you all for joining us. We are also looking forward to hearing from the beneficiaries of InvestEU and our implementing partners, as well as a range of other stakeholders over the course of the day. The success of InvestEU is a collective effort. As we enter the second half of the program, we must continue to work together to ensure that InvestEU delivers on its promise to benefit all European companies and citizens. So thank you very much for your attention and enjoy a very good discussion today. Thank you.
Bumper now, bumper, bumper, bumper. Huge thanks to the Commissioner for opening our ceremony and for setting the scene. Many thanks to you for your time. And to dig a little deeper into the lessons we've learned so far from the implementation of InvestEU, as the Commissioner said, I'm joined by our distinguished panel of guests. Let me reintroduce you to them. We have Teresa Czerwinnska, who is the Vice President of the EIB. We have Vincent van Petegem, the Minister of Finance for Belgium and Chair of the Board of Governors for the EIB. And we have Jyrki Katainen, the former Prime Minister of Finland and former Vice President of the European Commission. Welcome to you all. We're very glad to have you here. So we heard from the Commissioner about the evolution from the EFSI, which focused on creating jobs and growth, to InvestEU, which reflects EU policy priority. So Teresa Czerwinnska, I'll come to you first. Can you talk us through how the EIB group has adapted to more targeted investments which reflect EU policy priorities?
Thank you for your question. But first of all, I would like to say good afternoon to all of you. It is a great pleasure to be here and also to see that the event is well attended. A lot of interest on InvestEU program. It is also a great pleasure to exchange views on the stock, but also about the future of this program. But coming back to your question, flexibility and adaptability, my feeling is that it is the key word for the InvestEU program, because the EIB group would not be there where we are today in terms of implementing InvestEU without adapting to the EU policies. Please note that the preparatory works and negotiations began much earlier than the signature of agreement between EIB and European Commission in 2022. So our offer was and still is being adapted to address the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic and later war in Ukraine and other socio-economic events resulting in the increased energy prices, tightening monetary policy, and finally focusing on transition of the energy sector. So Europe's competitiveness and resilience is being tested, challenged more than ever. And we as the EIB group, with proven track record on the program FC, has been mentioned by Commissioner today. We build on our knowledge and expertise to develop and adapt InvestEU instruments. So how do we adapt the instruments? So looking at upstream, so by adapting the InvestEU mandate to new EU policy developments, including those documents relating to the CHIPS Act, Critical Raw Materials Act, Net Zero Industry Act, Repower EU, and many more. and by developing new types of products and vehicles like a green securitization product that seek to support new projects promoting climate action, environmental sustainability. And finally, our dedicated package of counter guarantees to improve access to finance for the wind power sector. So we have also integrated additional budgetary contributions like those from Norway and Iceland, as well as those from other EU programs such as Horizon Europe and Innovation Fund. Going downstream at the operational level, as our support is exemplified to provide support to electric vehicle batteries, but also our recent project signed in Douai in north of France and Northwold in Sweden. This ability to adapt has enabled EIB Group as of the end of 2023 to approve more than 471 operations for a financing amount of 24 billion euros, of which more than 380 operations have been signed for a financing amount of more than 16 billion euros. So the highest demand we see as far as in sustainable infrastructure and research, innovation and digitalization window, counting some 70% of total. And I also would like to underline as the EU Climate Bank, over 80% of EIB financing under InvestEU has been in support of climate objectives. So we can see InvestEU as a win-win game, a win for EIB Group and also win for European businesses.
Thank you. It's good to hear some of those figures. As the Commissioner said earlier, the numbers speak for themselves for success, and interesting, some of those recent projects you mentioned in North France and Sweden. Vincent van Petegem, I'm going to come to you next. Having heard about some of these examples, in your view, what has this ability to evolve and to respond meant for SMEs in Europe and for the economy as a whole?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation and for the warm welcome, Paolo. When I entered, that you actually mentioned my name by coming to the front. And I'm, of course, also very proud president of the Board of Governors. If you hear all that fantastic work that has been done by the EIB, by the European Investment Bank. And I indeed think that we should be able to move forward and to react rapidly on changing challenges. If you just remember 3-4 years ago during the RRF and the first Next Generation EU, we were talking about green and digital transition. Now, a couple of crises later, we're already talking about defense, we're talking about support to Ukraine, we're talking about strategic autonomy, about competitiveness. So it's important that we will be able to react rapidly. And therefore, I believe that if we really want to mobilize the private money that is necessary to actually be able to deal with these challenges, the EIB will play a very important role. They have the expertise, they have the knowledge how to deal with these deal with these projects. And they also put sometimes, and there I think they really show their added value to mobilize private investment. They put the EIB label on some projects that actually also decreases the risks for private investors to actually make decisions and actually to move forward. Because that's actually the question that you were asking about SMEs. I really believe that in a country like Belgium, we have a lot of SME. It's a typical SME based economic landscape. So there, of course, it's interesting that we will be able to reduce the administrative burden for this kind of investments that needs to be done to also be able to mobilize them. I think that one of the propositions there can definitely be maybe to go to a yearly reporting cycle. That could be an option instead of going a half-year reporting cycle. But for them, of course, it's important that the burden and the steps that they need to take are not too big to actually also be able to help in this in dealing with the challenges that we face.
Thank you. Great. So Jyrki Katainen, you got a special mention from the Commissioner as one of the fathers of the FC. You followed its evolution. how important is it that InvestEU, having heard this as well, however you'd like to add, but how important is it InvestEU stays flexible going forward?
Well, it's very important, and InvestEU is flexible by definition, because if you compare, this may be a little bit unfair, but if you nevertheless compare structural funds with InvestEU, the biggest difference is that 1 billion to structural funds is still 1 billion, but 1 billion to InvestEU is several billions in real economy. And because InvestEU is so demand driven, it keeps it flexible. Same thing was with EFSI when we established it. So this is a fantastic tool for SME financing, but also infrastructure financing. And because the EFSI or InvestEU does not pick the technologies, it allows private sector to innovate new solutions. And also it is really, as I said, market-driven tool. So this is the most efficient way to use taxpayers' money if you want to increase SME financing or boost public and private investments. May I tell a little story about the beginning of the EFSI?
Please, in fact, I wanted to ask you about that. So yes, do go ahead.
All right. So when I was first time in the European Parliament promoting this, I said that the purpose of the Commission is to reduce the fear factor in investments, because at that time the investment environment was rather gloomy in the aftermath of financial crisis. And when I presented the basic idea that if the European Parliament allocated 8 billion euros for the vehicle, then it would allow EIB to provide guarantees worth 18 billion. So from 8 billion to 18 billion. And this happened, and it really mobilized 315 billion of additional investments. So what I said about structural funds, the same 8 billion in structural funds would have been 8 billion as an outcome. But 8 billion to EFSI mobilized 315 billion. So I must say that it took a while to believe that this is really functioning. But and for instance, German paper Der Spiegel put me to the front page, and the title was Der Alchemist. So in the Commission we thought that according to calculation it should function, but in the audience there was maybe a little bit more wishful thinking than real belief. But everything went well, and I'm really happy to see that InvestEU is functioning similarly. And my final point is that I do hope that the next Commission and the European Parliament would establish similar type of guarantee scheme for Ukraine, because it would be the most efficient way to promote investments and SME financing also in Ukraine.
Thank you. And thank you for that. I think it's great to hear these behind the scenes stories of when it was set up, and you managed to convince those doubters without any doubt. Teresa, can I come to you then? We heard there about the reducing the fear factor at the beginning. How important is that still now? And how important is it for the EIB group to have this EU guarantee? What does that enable you to do that you couldn't do otherwise?
So I think that if we want to explain it in a very brief manner, so two factors. The first one is the risking of transactions, because as the EIB group, we have European Investment Bank and European Investment Fund. So we are offering various types of products through from direct traditional loans to companies via venture debt, but also equity type instruments and also equity investments in funds in order to reduce risk. So the risking is particularly important for high growth sectors, artificial intelligence, robotics, digital technologies. So what we need to boost investment in those areas is exactly to de-risk projects. It means that we can give a quality stamp, what Minister said, by doing a very thorough due diligence of the projects, and by giving this quality stamp, we de-risk in such a way that we crowd in private capital, because with scarce public resources, it is very important to de-risk and to provide leveraging on private capital. So two important factors: de-risking and providing leverage to the capital. So when we look at the data, we still see that European firms are less profitable, less efficient in terms of productivity when we compare the European sector to the US, for example. So for, once again, to boost investments, SMEs, but also for mid-caps and large companies to invest more in R&D, it is necessary to have such type of instrument which can absorb additional risk. Otherwise, it would not be possible to take the risk by EIB group, nor by private sector or by commercial banks. So we see strong reception of the InvestEU products. These products have such a high demand that the current run rate, the guarantee made available, will be fully committed over the course of 2024. And so we are hoping and pushing for budgetary top-ups for these highly sought after and impactful products. I just want to use this opportunity to give an example of two projects. The first one was signed yesterday. It is H2 Green Steel project in Sweden, which is about innovative steel plant which will reduce the associated CO2 emissions by 95%. So it's really big plant, big infrastructure, fully in line with the Green Deal objectives. And another one, a very completely different project. I'm giving two examples just to showcase how flexible InvestEU instrument is. One company that recently benefited from our support is Novadeep, innovative Belgium biotech company developing therapies for rare genetic diseases in the field of critical size bone defects. So I'm giving you an example of flexibility and different types of instrument. So it is very important to have the variety of products and also to put attention to those de-risking and leveraging of capital.
Great, thank you. Really great to hear about those examples. I saw lots of nodding going on there from our panel. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, or we'll move on to talking about the investment environment. The Commissioner talked about the massive investment challenges facing Europe. Jyrki, you're currently the head of group public affairs at Nordea, which is the leading Nordic bank. It'd be interesting, I think, to get your perspective on how you see the investment environment right now.
Well, like we all know, it's pretty uncertain. There are lots of good reasons for uncertainty. The security concerns are dominating the scene, especially in Europe. Also, unlevel competition environment due to the state aid. We have deliberately, for good reason, flexibilized our state aid regime. And in the long run, it's not a good thing. We should be courageous enough to stop this policy and come back to the basics. Take care of our internal market, which means that there is no public subsidies jeopardizing the level playing field. It's the source of productivity and well-being of Europeans. Also, other geopolitical tensions are keeping the investment environment pretty gloomy. We don't know what's going to happen in the United States later this year, and China is challenging us. So basically, some of those uncertainties are temporary in nature, but quite many of them are structural in nature. But at the same time, I must say that there are lots of very positive opportunities. which everybody can easily recognize. For instance, sustainability demands, green transition, data economy, also defense, if just the regulators allows financiers to invest in defense. It's a new opportunity. Defense could be considered widely. I mean, not only artillery, but also all the other security elements we are forced to invest in. And of course, Ukraine, once the peace is there, it's going to be the biggest growth market on earth. So there are lots of positive elements, and the investors and financiers tries to find a midway how much to believe in the future, which we can see, and how much the current fear factors are dominating the thing. Just one thing on green transition. I do hope that the next Commission, and with the support of European Parliament, would establish Green Deal 2.0. Because if you look at the industry has already decided, or they have already chosen green transition as a major direction, or the direction where to go. And as a former politician, I dare to say for the politicians, current politicians, that please don't mess up this now, because direction is clear, and we know that we have to take care of the climate, but also biodiversity, and that's why this is the strongest card we can play right at the moment. So no disruptions to this policy.
Okay, thank you for that clear message, which I think was well received. Thank you. So Teresa, lots maybe to follow up on there, but the Commissioner was saying that instruments like InvestEU are making a meaningful contribution to closing the investment gap. So maybe we can talk a bit about that, closing the investment gap, and how much can InvestEU do?
Okay, how much can InvestEU do? My feeling is that we still should do more, and as AIB Group, of course, we stand ready to contribute more to the program, and also we strongly believe that InvestEU program should be extended, and perhaps in the new financial perspective with old name or new name, but it should be continued definitely. I just wanted a little bit to continue on R&D spendings, because it says we strongly believe that it is crucial for the Europe's competitiveness and resilience. So just give you an example. If you compare the figures, labor productivity. If you look at the data, you see that labor productivity in the Eurozone increased only by 14% in the period between 1998 and 2022. At the same time, in the US, labor productivity increased by 62%. So it's huge. The gap is huge. I'm not saying that it explains everything, but my point is that underinvestment in the R&D field leads to lower productivity gains, and then lower the growth potential and competitiveness of Europe. So our point is to put particular attention to this area, to R&D spendings, innovative sectors like green tech, artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation of industry. We strongly believe that this is the future of European economy. How can we do more? Of course, we can accelerate investments in this field by once again by an extending program, but by top-ups in certain products like thematic products in energy production, energy storage, energy distribution, but also in many others like healthcare, for example. So we see a lot of opportunities, but for that, of course, we need more budget resources, but also we need to crowd in more private capital. From our perspective, in the context of scarce resources, InvestEU also provides for what we call additionality in our jargon. So this concept of additionality ensures that EU budgetary guarantee is reserved for where it will be the most impactful. And last point, flexibility. I fully agree that flexibility should be ensured for the program, because to answer market needs, to close the market gaps, and also to enter certain areas which are not absorbable by banking sector, it is crucial for us.
Okay, thank you. Vincent, I know that bridging the investment gap is a priority for the Belgian presidency. Did you want to say more around that?
With pleasure. You already heard a lot of challenges that we are facing and the need for funding. I think that if we look to our program in the coming period, of course, also a little bit establishing the next work program for the Commission, I see 4 possible ways, 2 of them on public resources, 2 of them on private resources. Maybe to start with the public resources, the reform that we are currently working on with economic governance review will also give the opportunity to many member states to actually invest more than before. There is due to the multi-annual approach, due to the country-specific approach of this economic governance review, there will be the possibility to also invest more in the challenges that we face and that were already mentioned here. Second, I also, on our agenda, there is also an evaluation of the next generation 1.0, and that, of course, will also open the discussion on the next generation 2.0 discussion that will be necessary. I don't know if we will be able to come there, but at least for me, if we start that discussion, it's also important. One of the elements that I found strange of the next generation 1.0 was the focus on the national projects. We are always saying that we have big challenges, global challenges, the green transition, digital transition, and we actually gave the money to an individual member state, while citizens are actually expecting from us that we are solving at the European level any possible challenge that we are facing. And so I believe that if we would go to a second next generation EU, that it will be important that we take the opportunity to invest in transnational or European projects and programs to actually deal with the transition in climate, in competitiveness, and in others. So that's about the public resources. The second element, also important, of course, is everything that has to do with private resources. We cannot only finance it with public money. We need to, as already mentioned by the 2 other speakers, we need to take these private resources as well into account and use a multiplicator on the money that we are going to invest. 2 important files there: the banking union. We need resilient, stable banks, stable financial sector. So definitely in the years to come, we need to move forward on that file to actually make a more integrated European banking union. And then also, of course, on the capital markets union, to see what ways we can find to actually mobilize that private money and to see how we can make that private money also available to invest in the many challenges that we have.
Thank you very much. We are nearly out of time. What I'd like to do just to finish is if I could get you maybe to sum up very quickly as we look towards the next Commission. We've touched on all of this, obviously, but what do you see as the main investment challenge, the main investment needs that must be addressed? What can make it more impactful? Maybe one takeaway to leave us with. And Vincent, I'll come back to you for that.
Well, it will be about competitiveness, how we can enhance the competitiveness. And to be honest, and that's also the reason, if you look to the next Commission and the work program of the next Commission, I think that is one of the questions that they will have to deal with. How can we actually strengthen the Europeans' competitiveness? That has to do with external aspects and internal aspects, but that will definitely be one of the main focus that will be necessary. You were talking about the Green Deal 2.0. I also think that we should put an industrial deal next to it by of course also trying to deregulate to see how it's possible to remove red tape and to remove bureaucracy, because that will also help us to actually move forward with investments that are needed. And there as well, I think that the strategic direction of the EIB will be an important discussion that we will need to have. That's also a discussion that is on the table during our informal ECOFIN in Ghent at the end of February, where we also will discuss together with the new president, with Nadia Calviño, about what are the strategic directions we need to go, how will we be able to de-risk for companies to also help and using that multiplicator in the investment and in the money that we put available.
Very interesting. Thank you. Teresa, then the same question to you for a last comment.
Thank you. Very last comment. I wanted to come back to Ukraine topic, which was been raised because I want to add that the new all challenge for the new commission and for the new budgetary perspective as well is Ukraine. So now as the EIB group, we are financing projects in order to build resilience of Ukraine and our Ukrainian economy. But also we need to be much more forward looking, and we need to think about program, I don't know what about the name, but the program which will certainly boost investments in Ukraine, but the program also which will boost capacity of the EU companies, EU firms to support rebuilding of Ukraine. And for this, we need guarantees to be provided to the EU firms which are interested in investing in Ukraine, and also provide an export or an import from and to Ukraine. So I think this particular element, this Ukraine and Moldova, sorry, because Ukraine and Moldova also have been given candidate status. I think it will be great challenge, and we need to think how to answer to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyrki. A very quick final word to you.
Thank you. First, I want to say that I subscribe everything what Minister said. Second point, I do hope that in the midterm review, budgetary review, the InvestEU will be treated well, further capitalized if need be, because it has proven to be agile vehicle for promoting all those structural investments we need in order to improve our competitiveness. Partially thanks to the implementing partners. There are EIB, of course, EIF, Nordic Investment Bank, EBRD, and plenty of national promotional banks. So it guarantees that there is a wide range of knowledge and geographical coverage can be taken care of. So I really hope that InvestEU will fly high also during the next mandate.
Thank you so much to all of you for your time, for the insight you've brought, the knowledge. I can feel everyone listening intently to everything you're saying. So please do join me in thanking our panelists for this opening session. Yeah, take your seats. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank Well, our next panel discussion puts the spotlight on InvestEU.